Okay, so coming back from the holiday break is always sort of an adjustment, but getting back in the swing of things. Usually by this point, I would be further along in grading, but since we lost a day with the holiday, playing catch up. But I will be giving grades and feedback on the first part of the mood board project by tomorrow, as well as your exploration for this week. So be looking for that. One thing that that I do with the mood board projects is that if there's any grade point deductions, if you go back and make edits to your project, when you turn it back in for the following week, I'll go back and take a look at it again, and you can regain up to 10 points that might have been deducted. So something to keep in mind. If you do make changes, though, let me know so I know to go and look and see what has changed. But that's just something that I do because I feel like it's a better benefit for learning if you're able to see what's going on and kind of and make the adjustments.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, otherwise, I think we are getting back on track. Be sure to look at the due dates because they're a little different from the previous week just because of the holiday break. So keep track of what's going on. So tonight we're going to talk about color and the use of color in media. And color is a pretty interesting topic. It's a very broad topic. The information that we cover this week really only scratches the surface of what we could get into with color theory and color psychology. There are entire courses taught on this in other, in graphic design degree programs and art programs. So there's a whole lot more depth that you can go into if you find it interesting and take a little deeper dive. Let me actually go back. I'm going to talk a lot about the color wheel. And you may have seen the color wheel if you've ever taken an art class. You might be familiar with it. Have you ever worked with it at all? Is it familiar to you? Or is it something you've seen at some point?
I did it like in like primary school, elementary school, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, it's really, unless you've done a lot of study of formal art, you probably haven't worked with it a whole lot. But the color wheel is interesting in that it arranges the colors in a very logically ordered manner. It's kind of, the spectrum or the rainbow, the one color fades into the next and the next as you go around. But the way they're actually arranged is that the colors that are opposite one another are called complementary, which we'll get into in a minute, but they're actually based on how our eyes perceive color. Those two colors will compete for your eyes' optic nerves' attention. And so when they're paired together, it creates sort of an energy, a kind of a vibration or a high energy because of that, the way your eyes are perceiving it. So when the artists over the centuries have developed this color wheel, that's something that has played a part. And that's going to be very important as we move ahead, because what you'll find is that competition, that sort of energy that is created through our perception, is something you can take advantage of to influence how your media is perceived by your audience. Here's something that you might be familiar with, and that is in the area of cosmetics, of makeup. When you are applying concealer, you have to pick a color based on your skin tones. And if you're trying to neutralize in my case, purple rings under your eyes, what do you use? You use a yellow concealer. And that's all based on these same principles of color theory. Yellow is the complement of purple. if you look on the color wheel, red and green are opposites, blue and orange. So effectively, that those opposite colors will neutralize each other if they're combined, but if they're just paired next to each other, they kind of compete. Some quick examples. And this week for your exploration, instead of looking at advertisements, now we're looking at movie posters. Much like an advertisement, movie poster has to tell a story in one image, with one image and a title, sometimes a tagline or a catchphrase. And so in order to capture the feel and message of that film in one single moment, they have to make effective use of every detail, and color is a big part of that. Here's the poster for the movie Amelie. And if we go back to the color wheel, here we go, you see that red and green are opposites, they're complements. And in this poster, they've made use of that red color and its contrast with the green background in order to make Amelie really stand out as a figure within the design. I did some Photoshop and took that color out, and you can see how it changes the entire energy and feel of the poster when that happens. And there's the side by side. She becomes less prominent and less of a foreground figure when the colors are more harmonious and more what's called analogous than when they are complementary or high contrast. Another common distinction in colors is that they will be often described as cool colors or warm colors. And basically splits the color wheel down the middle. Warm colors are those that call to mind ideas of warmth, of fire, of heat. These are the oranges and yellows and reds. And the cool colors are those that feel like cool water or ice, the blues, violets, and the cool greens. An interesting visual effect of these warm versus cool colors is that warm colors tend to pop out. They look like they're popping closer to you, even in a two-dimensional image, whereas cool colors will recede into the background. And that's exactly the case here with Amelie. They made use of that red sweater in order to make her appear more as a foreground figure. With the wrong direction. And so you'll see things like this, where the big blockbuster action films will use that idea to make their action hero figures really pop forward and feel more dynamic by giving the background a cool color and the hero more of a warm tone. You see this especially with action films, the blue and orange or blue and red, whether it's Iron Man or Transformers or what have you. If you look at not only the movie posters, but the movies themselves will make use of this in order to make the visuals look more exciting and more dynamic and kind of in your face. Okay, so with that idea that colors that are opposites on the color wheel are more contrasting and have more of a competition that creates a dynamic energy, the opposite is also true. Those that are closer together on the color wheel are more harmonious, more low energy, and have more of a tranquil feel. Those two ideas really are the basis for a lot, if not all, of color theory. And so if you have that in mind, you can refer to a color wheel and plan a color scheme to create the kind of energy that you are going for. Plan the colors that you will use.
Yeah, the reading that we were doing said that like those hues could be like quiet or bold, and then here it says calming or energizing. So it's like kind of the same thing.
Yeah, right. So depending on what you're going for. Now, these are some basic color relationships that have been kind of standardized by artists. So, and really it depends on which colors you choose. We can go back to the warm versus cool colors. Even even if you're picking colors that are close together, which is they're called analogous when they're next to each other in the color wheel. If you have a warm color, they'll have a little more energy because of that effect of the warm colors, but it won't have the same dynamic feel as if you paired colors that were opposites. So while there's more of a harmonious feel, it won't be quite this action-packed. And the most basic color scheme you can work with is monochromatic, and that means one color. So, for example, the Picasso painting here just uses blue across the board, but it uses different tints and shades of blue. So shades are darker varieties, tints are the lighter varieties, and so here he's used that to create shadows and highlights. And yeah, it can be calming or energizing depending on the coolness or warmness of the colors, like you said. And tends to be elegant, tends to be a little more serene. The downside of monochromatic color scheme is that it gives you very limited options, and it doesn't really allow you to leverage color to add emphasis. So if you had high contrasting colors, you can make something more prominent by giving it like a splash of red that catches the eye, whereas monochromatic is a little more sedate. Here are a couple of more modern day examples. And actually, these are good illustrations of what you were saying with whether it's more sedate or more bold. The cool colors in the Harry Potter poster, it's meant to be more oppressive feeling. This is a point where the storyline is getting a little darker. If you're familiar with the Harry Potter stories,
Yeah.
and it looks like it's in an area where there's a lot of snow, so it's a very cold feel, a lot of desperate facial expressions, and so the cool colors really underscore that. Whereas Gladiator is a warm color. It's action, but it's also there's a lot of it's a story of revenge. So there's a lot of anger and a lot of kind of fierce emotion taking place. So both monochromatic, but very opposite feel. A lot of times I'll compare the color schemes to a music score in film. A music score is always there, but it's meant to be the backdrop. It underscores the action taking place, but it's not the main focus. Color, in the same way, can be used to underscore emotion without being the main subject. We're still looking at Harry Potter's face, but the color enhances the emotion. Very rarely will we work with single colors. Usually we want a little more color richness. So complementary colors, as I mentioned, are those that are opposites. Very stark contrast, very dynamic and exciting. Especially intense when you have a very cool color paired with a very warm color. Whereas analogous are more harmonious. Similar to monochromatic, but a little more color options. And here's an example of cool analogous colors, greens and blues, and kind of moving into the yellow greens. Almost the same color scheme as the Monet picture painting here in the Bugs Life movie poster. So it's fun, it's upbeat, but it's obviously not meant to be a blockbuster action film. And with Angry Birds, that color, the red, this is getting a little bit into color psychology. Red is that color of anger, of intense emotion, and the angry bird is presented in red. So still not an action shot, but it gives it that warm emotion. And then complementary. So these are the colors that are opposites on the color wheel. Blue and orange is one that you'll see very often in movie posters and in films. This is a Vincent van Gogh painting. And what I really like about this painting is that it illustrates some of the key benefits of using complementary colors. That warm orange of the cafe makes that little section of the painting really jump out. It catches our attention. It almost commands our attention, and it allows the rest of the city, the nighttime cityscape, to fall into the background. So there's no chance of our attention not focusing on this scene. And that same idea is applied here. The kind of yellow-orange of the moon, or the setting sun, rather, is almost literally a spotlight on Ariel in The Little Mermaid, because it's the complement of the kind of blue-violet backdrop. And the red hair against the green backdrop in Alice in Wonderland makes the Mad Hatter really pop, just like Amelie in the earlier poster. What's interesting, and I don't know if I included the slide, I hope I did later, that same idea, though, is used in newscasts. If you look at the typical news desk, they'll always have a blue background, whether it's sort of it looks like a city skyline or a set of monitors or something that's in the background. It'll always be a cool color, usually blue, because natural skin tones are always in the warm range. And so that contrast will always make the news anchors and the reporters stand out and become our focal point. There are a whole bunch of basic color schemes that we could cover, things like triadic, quadratic, split, complementary, and so forth. But I really want to emphasize the importance of those two basic color relationships, analogous and complementary. With analogous being those that are similar, complementary are those that are opposites. Because those two fundamental ideas will let you plan all of the other color schemes. They're all derived from that. The other one that I do want to mention, though, is achromatic. And achromatic just means colorless, no color. This is black and white or grayscale. And it's still often used to good effect. It's sometimes more of a depressed mood. It can be very elegant, but a lot of times it's used to create more of a grim or gritty feel. And one option that you can use with this is throwing in an accent color to add a point of emphasis. And of course, the 007 movies, the James Bond movies are always kind of very gritty and edgy, action films, suspense films. The Fast and the Furious poster on the right, though, is a different matter. And I always forget the actor's name, but this movie was released right after the one of the Fast and Furious stars had passed away in a car accident, and this poster was created almost as a tribute to him because oh my goodness, my mind's going blank right now because I can't think of their names. Vin Diesel was a very close friend to this actor, and so using those muted colors, almost achromatic, creates that sort of feeling of mourning. So it's illustrates how this the lack of color can create that more subdued and mournful feel. And it also allows the opportunity to create images like this from Schindler's List, where the little girl in the red coat appears as the first sign of color in the film and becomes the focal point. It commands attention. It also creates a feeling of a symbolic meaning. So I'm presenting these ideas in relation to movies, in particular in movie posters, but really everything that we cover in this course is meant to be media neutral. These same ideas apply regardless of what medium you're working with. So this same idea of adding an accent color can be used, say, in a website to call attention to the registration button or the key content area or so forth. Okay, so that's the basic color relationships using the color wheel. The idea that opposites high contrast, add energy, colors that are more similar are more subdued, more calm and harmonious. And you can make use of those ideas in many different ways. One of them is to help underscore the mood of a story. We talked about storytelling last week with visual storytelling. And again, this is sort of like the music score in a visual sense. It underscores those ideas. Taking a look at this advertisement, how is the color red used to emphasize the message of this particular ad?
It makes it like pop out. You see the red of the car, you see the red of the background.
Mm-hmm.
It just like really makes you focus.
Yeah, red is actually red has some particular interesting properties in that it does tend to grab our attention. It's something that instinctively that cues our instinct for danger, for strong emotions, and so forth. And this is diving into a little bit into the topic of color psychology, but if you look at the wording of this ad, rekindle the flame of desire, which is paired with this intense red background, red car, and think about what red is often associated with. Think about like Valentine's Day. Red is everywhere because that is a color that we associate with intense emotion, such as desire. And so it's sort of reinforcing that idea and that mood. And so you'll really often see this done, and most of the time it's done so subtly that we aren't really conscious of it unless we know to pay attention. But taking a look at this image here, look at the facial expressions of Jason Bateman at the top, having a very troubled look, struggling with these toddlers, and the color is that cool color background. So that's more of a subdued mood and helps to underscore his more lower emotional state, whereas Ryan Reynolds is paired with this bright orange, upbeat backdrop, and he's there with the two young women, much happier facial expression. So they're making use of color to reinforce those emotional states that are being depicted. This is a common practice. I'll often say nothing is left to chance. And no element of any media is left to chance when it's done well. Have you watched the series Breaking Bad by chance?
Yeah.
Okay. This infographic that I have here is based on that series. And if anybody's watching the archive that hasn't seen it, there's going to be some spoilers. But what someone has done is gone through the entire series, season by season, and recorded, like kind of made note of the colors associated with each character in each episode, and almost in every scene. But you can see that breakdown here. The one that I really like to focus on is Jesse Pinkman. Remember, he's sort of starts off as this very hot-headed young man. He, every other word out of his mouth is a curse word, and he's has a very quick temper. So predictably, what we see is that there's a lot of warm colors associated with him, a lot of red, a lot of orange, but not consistently. Sometimes there are sudden changes. And these are numbered. I don't know if you can actually read that on your end, but it's because they're very small. But at number 3 right here at the end of season 1, everything goes from a lot of red to black, a big block of black associated with Jesse. And at that point, he's abducted by Tuco, who's the sort of a drug lord. So things have taken a downward turn for him. He's in a bad spot, and the color that they associate with the character follows along with that. Similarly, down here at point number 5, it goes from red, once again, to sort of a gray-green and into black. At that point, his girlfriend dies, Jane dies, and then he goes into rehab. So it's sort of, he goes from this time when he's very kind of hedonistic, he's partying a lot, and then something very tragic happens, and the rug is pulled out from under him. And they use color to show that. And just to show what that looks like in actual practice, notice all the colors he's wearing. The jacket's red, his hat's red, shirt's red, the car, and that's how they associate those colors with him. It's not, it's not that the screen is drowned in red, but these other subtle associations are done. And so when those colors go away, then suddenly maybe he's sitting in a dark room a lot, he's wearing drab colors. It really emphasizes the mood that he's experiencing. Another example I like to look at is the Matrix film series, because they make use of color to give an indication of the setting, of the feel of the location that they're at. When they're in the Matrix, which is this artificial virtual world in a computer, like a computer simulation, there's sort of an unnatural look. It has this green cast to it. So it's kind of a very subtle, almost unconscious indication that things aren't quite right. They don't really reveal what it is until later. And then you find out that it's because this isn't natural. This isn't the natural world. And then when they enter what is, quote, the real world in the movie, now we see natural colors, natural skin tones, warmth, comes back into it. So it feels more alive. And then a third environment is when they leave the safety of their home and go out into this post-apocalyptic world. Everything now is gray and this cold blue. So it feels very unwelcoming, very lifeless, and cold and uncaring, because that's where the evil robots live, the machines live. And so these are factors that are decided on well in advance as the script is being developed. There's actually there's actually a colorist that sits down and plans these things out. Very classic example. Usually I'll pull examples from your exploration activities, since I haven't gotten to those yet. These are some from past explorations. These are some really classic examples, though. The 1977 Star Wars poster compared to the more recent Force Awakens poster, and you see very similar themes, where in the original, though, they used more of a cool colors representing the bad guys versus warm colors representing the good guys. It's a little bit less cut and dry in the newer poster, with more of a side-to-side comparison of the warm versus cool, for really giving emphasis to the character of Rey through that very bright, warm splash of color. Any thoughts so far? I just kind of plow ahead, but if you did have any comments or questions, please jump in.
I'm kind of amazed of like the color backgrounds, like talking about the Matrix. I knew that those colors were there, but I never really noticed what they were for. So it's cool to be able to understand it now.
Yeah, it's really something we don't think about, and it's done in such a subtle way when it's done well. But I'll often say, sorry, go ahead.
It definitely helps with the emotions of it.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll say, if there's one thing that I would hope for you to take away from this course, it's not necessarily skill in Photoshop, but just an awareness and a critical eye for how these things are made. Because the more aware that you are in the media you consume, the more conscious you'll be in the media that you plan and you create on your own, in your own work. Next week, we're going to talk about what's called visual hierarchy. And visual hierarchy is basically the order of importance, like where you put emphasis within an image. What do you want your audience to notice first? So getting a little bit of a head start on that is the use of color to direct attention. Color is extremely powerful for catching the eye. If you make use of contrasting colors, an accent color that stands out, our eyes and our brains are geared to notice difference, something that's changed, a break in the pattern. And so when there's suddenly a difference in color or texture, we take notice. For example, I'll confess, this is a photo I stole off of one of my friend's Instagram images. But where does your eye immediately go? It automatically goes to that little mushroom, most likely, because we've got a background that's almost entirely green, and then its complement, that warm red, is just sort of this really bright accent. It's a difference. It's a change in the pattern. We notice that. And Hollywood certainly is aware of that, and you'll see this time and again. What we have here is basically, even though it's gold, gold is more or less a yellow-orange color. And so looking at that with the color wheel in mind, you have the complementary blue. This elegant coach allows Cinderella to really catch our attention. And this is really clever. And this, I really should capture the video for this section, because what we have is another scene from Harry Potter. And this is the Quidditch match, which is very fast-paced. It's a sports action scene, and Harry Potter is zooming around the field. In order to maintain our attention on that character, though, they've made use of complementary colors. They've put him over a entirely green background in his red Gryffindor robes. Even these towers where the spectators are seated have a bit of a green cast to them. They're not entirely yellow. So wherever Harry Potter flies to, he will always be the focal point. Even though Draco Malfoy is in the foreground, his green robes make it blend in. So in that way, our attention is maintained. And this is the one I mentioned earlier with the newscast. There will always be that blue background. It looks like something important is happening back there, some kind of monitors and information coming in, but really it's just there to allow those newscasters to take the foreground. And this is all based on that color wheel. So, it's really easy if you don't have, I recommend that you grab a color wheel at the craft store if you have a chance, but it's easy enough to simply do a Google image search for color wheel and it'll be right there and you can refer to it when you're planning any kind of media design. But this is the kind of thing you can take advantage of. It's exactly the same idea that's in the newsroom as on the Quidditch match of maintaining our focus. Any other thoughts or questions so far? Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, and the last topic related to color that I wanted to cover, and this will be most relevant to our mood board project, is the use of color for branding. And a lot of the same ideas apply here as well. But a brand is not just the logo. A brand is every aspect of that product's identity that gives it personality. Color is very fundamental to that. When you see that green logo for Starbucks, you recognize it because it's become a part of our cultural landscape. What happens when you reverse these colors? Suddenly,
it looks different.
Yeah, it just doesn't look right anymore. You might not even notice that that's a Starbucks logo anymore because it isn't what we're accustomed to. And here's just another example, UPS versus FedEx. UPS even makes mention of the gold and brown colors in their commercials sometimes. To take that away, and it takes away a part of the personality. So what you're going to do in your mood board project for this week is develop basically a brand color scheme. And this is sort of your personal brand. What that is in effect doing is starting to establish your media personality. And if you can create a set of colors for a brand. It doesn't have to be your brand, but if you're working to develop a brand and you use those colors consistently, then you end up with something like these examples that I have here. And it's that consistent use of the brand colors. You don't want to make it too complex, where there's too many colors involved. But when it becomes ubiquitous, when it becomes every day, we're used to it, then that's when you build brand recognition. Any company or organization will have a style guide somewhere. And this is sort of the definitive Bible, for lack of a better term, of how that brand is to be presented. It will codify those colors. You'll notice in this week's mood board assignment that I'll have you write down or record the color codes for your colors. And that's because if you have those color codes, you can reproduce those colors exactly. There's not left to guessing, estimating more or less the colors. They're reproduced exactly digitally every time. This is from Full Sail Style Guide. These are our brand colors. This sort of burnt orange and kind of ochre green color. This is actually, if you analyze it, it's actually a dark shade of yellow, which I wouldn't guess just by looking at it. But those two colors will appear in all of our branded material, the business cards, the logos, and so on. The metallic silver is less common, but it is used sometimes as an accent color. You'll see it in the background at graduation ceremonies. These are used consistently. This is from the catalog, the print catalog. Colors, same colors appear in different combinations. Notice that the warm colors used to draw attention to details like the title and the page number. But almost every page makes use of these colors. So it's consistent. It becomes recognizable. The same thing is true with Coca-Cola, with its white and red, or red and silver in some cases. McDonald's has the golden arches, and that is used consistently. You'll see things like this sometimes. You'll see websites that give a breakdown of colors and the emotions that they evoke. And it's almost like looking at one of those dream interpretation manuals where it's sort of like, if you see this in your dream, it means this particular meaning. But I really don't like this kind of prescribed meaning because it's not necessarily correct. Red isn't always youthful and bold. Red can also be very serious. It can be very, it can be a warning sign, and so forth. It really depends on the context, and context is always key. The only really consistent thing I've noticed in looking at some of these brands is that the primary colors, things like red, blue, and yellow, are usually the more formal and more businesslike or reserved, conservative brands, whereas when you get farther from the primary colors into things like purples, the tertiary colors of secondary and tertiary colors, purples and orange and so forth, green, then you get into more quirky or lighthearted brands. So even looking at the examples here, blue is Dell Computers, JP Morgan, and General Electric, and so forth, Walmart, whereas purple gives a more fun impression, more lighthearted. So it's Barbie and Yahoo and Sci-Fi Channel and Taco Bell. So really what it comes down to is a combination of the personality of the brand that you're trying to create, and the context in which it's used. BP is an interesting case. In looking at BP's branding with this logo, why do you think they chose the colors that they did? BP is British Petroleum, so it's an oil company.
Well, the yellow I would think is like cheerful, but that kind of doesn't make sense for gas. I don't really know.
Okay, no, and you're right. And look at it; it's it's the cheerful yellow. It's green, which is often a color of we think of what green has come to mean in society. Green is usually you say green initiatives are things like recycling or going green is being environmentally conscious. So and then they created this flower like logo. So it's even though
Maybe like something about like being good for the earth.
yeah, right. Because petroleum companies don't have a reputation for being particularly good for the environment, but this is their branding, this is their public, their PR. So they're trying to create that image that they are conscious of, the environmental impact and so on. So creating that public image is part of that effort. So, it's not always the logical what would represent the actual reality of an oil company. Sometimes it's what kind of image do they want to create. And if you remember our talk about color schemes, analogous colors, monochromatic colors, and complementary, those apply here as well. Intel, that's a monochromatic design using blue, which is a primary color. It's very conservative. And this is a company that builds components for business machines or computers. Whereas Firefox is going for a more dynamic and exciting look with their complementary orange and blue. Even the swoosh design of the tail gives it more of a sense of motion. So the same ideas are applying here as well. So going back to the mood board project, when you're creating your colors, you're picking your colors, think about the design concept that you described in your week 1 project and consider what kind of emotion you want to convey to go along with that visual concept. One thing you can do is go through what you wrote and pull out keywords that describe moods or feelings, emotions, and think about what do those come down to? What kind of feelings are? Is it upbeat? Is it sentimental? Is it fun, exciting, and so forth? And then based on the principles that we've covered tonight, look at your color wheel and think about what goes along with that. What colors both speak to your personality and also convey the mood that you want. So, if you wanted something that's more artistic, a lot of times some of the tertiary colors or secondary colors like purple, green, and orange could be options. And then if you want it to be more subdued, pick colors, pair those with colors that are similar, that are close together, analogous on the color wheel. Or if you want it to be more exciting, then go for the opposites. And develop your color scheme in that way. Any last questions?
Actually, yeah. You know how you had sent the template in at first in Pages, and then you sent it in like a Word document?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Do you want? want it in the page. I had turned in the last week's assignment in the Word because I was the one that was able to get open. But should we like try to get it back on pages or just continue on with the Word document, or like is there any difference?
There shouldn't be too much difference. Either one is fine. I provided the Word version because there were a few people in the class that were having trouble with the Pages document. So either one is perfectly valid. The only thing I think you might have a challenge with is finding your color codes in Word.
Okay.
And I'll have to look into that because yeah, that might work a good bit differently. Um, but yeah, if you started it with the Word document, then you can go ahead and continue with that. Pages is preferable, but either one is perfectly acceptable.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining me tonight and bearing with me through this presentation. I really appreciate it
Thank you.
and appreciate your input and your questions. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. But if not, then I'm happy to let you go for the evening.
Okay. Have a good night.
You too.